Hiya, I'm Bruce Fummey from Scotland History Tours. Today, I thought I'd take you to where the English Civil War started and finished, here on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh. Now, if you're wondering how the English Civil War started and ended here, then this is the video for you. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then hit the subscribe button at the bottom right hand side of the screen any time during this video, and then click the notification bell to make sure that they tell you when I publish new videos. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. This is St Giles Cathedral in the High Street in Edinburgh's Royal Mile. Really, it's the High Kirk of Scotland, and in a way, that's the source of the problems. If you go inside that front door there, you can turn either to the left or to the right. But if you go to the right and then walk along the southern side of the kirk, you'll see a bronze sculpture of a three-legged stool. That commemorates the start of the English Civil War. We should probably call it the War of the Three Kingdoms, but to be honest, that might confuse Americans. Let's take a stroll. The transition from cathedral to kirk happened around 1560 with the Scottish Reformation. John Knox became the minister here. Now, this isn't where the Scottish Reformation started, but it's certainly where it was consolidated with the ministry of that very man. If you haven't seen it already, then you should watch my video about John Knox. It's called The Man Who Changed Scotland. Obviously, there'll be a link at the end. I'm also going to leave a link to some books that are really interesting in the description below. But let's get on with the story. I had to step over that. Mary Queen of Scots was forced to abdicate in 1657, and James VI was the child king who grew up the first monarch in Reformation Scotland. And as it grew, the Presbyterian Church and the Protestant nobility were in control. Some of the radical Protestant nobility didn't even think that Scotland was Presbyterian enough. And as a teenager, they abducted James in the raid of Ruthven and took him hostage for 18 months. So from childhood, he had to learn how to negotiate the shark-infested holy waters of religion and power politics in Scotland. By adulthood, he'd learned how to impose himself, to use parliament and political manoeuvring to exercise some control over the all-powerful Scottish Church. They were often at loggerheads. You see, when James was still in the womb, his dad had been murdered in a gunpowder plot, and his mother's lives and his had been threatened by the father of that raid of Ruthven leader guy. As an adult, he was trapped in the house of the sons of that raid of Ruthven leader guy as gunpowder was placed underneath it. The story's a belter. I'll leave a link at the end to my video, The Day the UK Nearly Didn't Happen. Now, as far as James was concerned, all this was proof that God watched over him and he was divinely appointed. God meant that he should be head of the church and to appoint bishops as he pleased. Presbyterians thought that Christ was head of the church, James merely one of the congregation, and there should be no bishops. But eventually, James did manage to appoint 3 bishops to Parliament, and he was prepared to bide his time. Scotland had proved difficult, but by the age of 37, James was pretty much on top of things and was able to control Parliament round there and impose himself. Then, in 1603, Queen Elizabeth of England died, and James became King of England, where ever since his 2 times great uncle Henry VIII, the king had been head of the Anglican Church and thus appointed bishops. He couldn't wait to get down to England. It must have been like the relief of taking a tight bra off after a long day's work. That's right, ladies, equal opportunity metaphor for the 21st century Scotland. You don't get that when you're Oliver, do you? James headed south. But before he even got to London, Puritans had presented him with a petition for changes to the English system. For God's sake. I've only just got my bra off and now it turns out the English are even bigger tits than the Scots. England was officially Anglican, which meant that he would be head of the church rather than Christ the Saviour and living God. But England also had a Catholic minority who'd supported his mother, Mary Queen of Scots. And in the run-up to becoming King of England, James might just have given the impression that he would ease some of their persecution. But it turns out he wasn't as all-powerful as he expected to be. Their disappointment led to another gunpowder plot and more explosives planned for the opening of Parliament 2 years later. But it was worse than that. Because as well as Anglicans and Catholics, the English had their own Presbyterians as well. And they had independents who formed all sorts of other factions. We'll have to get rid of them. If only there was some inhospitable lands across the Atlantic where we could send them. But it was worse even than that. The English parliamentary system was more developed than in Scotland, with a House of Commoners as well as a House of Lords. They weren't so easy to manipulate as the Scottish Parliament had been. Now, Elizabeth had charmed them and cajoled them, threatened them and pacified them, but now, with a substitute teacher sent from up north, so, in Scotland, James had to jiggle Highlanders and Lowlanders, with a Highland jig, a Catholic minority and Presbyterians who opposed bishops, and he had to do it from 400 miles away in London. In England, he had to manage Catholics and Anglicans who didn't mind bishops, but also Presbyterians and other Puritans who did. And a parliament that was on his doorstep, but wasn't buying his divine right of king's line. Well, James managed to do a reasonably good job of managing and negotiating this minefield. Did I forget to mention Ireland? With England, he inherited Ireland as well. And I'll be honest, he cocked that up a bit. So, Ireland was Catholic with a Protestant minority who had all the power. Some of them were Anglican Episcopalians, but James made things worse by sending a bunch of Presbyterians to the north so as to exercise control. And to be honest, we don't have time, but they turned out to be much better with explosives than any of the previous lot. Faced with this tapas of religions, the smorgasbord of nations, this assorted buffet of constitutional arrangements, James had two unification projects, religious and national. On religion, he was relatively successful. He didn't rock the boat too much and he ended up with a new translation of the Bible named after him. Squeezing 3 kingdoms into one toothpaste tube, that is a bigger challenge. And he died with that dream unfulfilled. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage King Charles I. James's son Charles looked at the challenge in front of him. He had 3 ferrets and 1 sack. Now, I know that there are some French folk that watch these and they might not be familiar with this metaphor. Si vous pouvez imaginer que j'ai 3 ferrets et 1 sac, comment je peux les mettre tous les 3 dans le sac? Il est impossible, on ne peut pas les faire. He looked at the ferrets, he looked at the sack, and he decided that the best way to get the 3 ferrets into 1 sack would be if they all converted to the Church of England. And no one gets a parliament. So, Scotland would have bishops and an Anglican prayer book. And so on Sunday the 23rd of July 1637, when James Hannay, the Dean of Edinburgh, began to read the English service for the first time, here in St Giles Cathedral, the High Kirk of Scotland, a woman called Jenny Geddes stood up, lifted her 3-legged stool from underneath her, shouted, "Dinna read your English Mass at me," and threw the stool. All hell broke loose. A riot broke out in the street here. Up and down the country, committees were set up, proposals were produced and sent to Charles. Now, the king, who ruled by divine right, rejected them. And so, on the 28th of February 1638 in Greyfriars Kirkyard, people gathered for the first signing of the National Covenant. It would be sent all around the country to every town and village. Everyone would be encouraged to sign, to state that the Scottish Church is supreme above earthly authority, and the Covenanters took control of Scotland. Now, the rest of the details will have to wait for other videos, but Long story short, this set off the Bishops' Wars. Charles had to recall the English Parliament to raise money to put down rebellious Scots. They also had a lot of unacceptable conditions, as Man in Ireland faced even more difficulties imposing the Anglican Church there. Charles raised his own army, the English Parliament raised theirs, Scots fought the Irish, the English fought the English, the King got the chop, the English fought the Irish, the Scots fought the English, and finally, when English parliamentarians in Oliver Cromwell's new model army had defeated everyone, a proclamation was read at the Market Cross in Edinburgh to say that Scotland would be subsumed into England, thus bringing to an end the English Civil War, more correctly, the War of the Three Kingdoms, which started with Jenny Geddes throwing a stool in that church in 1637 and ended with a proclamation at this Market Cross in 1654. I believe my work here is done. Now, if you want to support this work and get advert-free videos, then please click the white tab up there. Don't forget the incredible story of the Gowrie conspiracy and the day the UK nearly didn't happen here. Alternatively, find out more about John Knox and the Scottish Reformation there. In the meantime, ha mé an dóchas gon bí láma alive. Cheerio and Drasta.